Hi everyone, we're the Candid Book Club and welcome back to our YouTube channel. So today we are joined by our first author ever on our channel, and this is Huma Qureshi.
Thank you.
We first got acquainted with Huma's work in 2020, where we read her memoir, How We Met. And then a year after that, we read Things We Do Not Tell the People We Love, which is an amazing short story collection, which you've heard us bang on about time and time again. And if you haven't, you need to read the book and go back to our older videos. So Huma, over to you. Please, can you just give us like a little summary about those two books?
Of course. So How We Met is my memoir. It's a coming of age memoir about me in my early 20s, navigating life at that moment when you think you should be a grown-up, but really you're not. And it's also about how I met my husband and my family and everything else that comes along with it. So it's a real family kind of memoir for me.
Yeah.
And Things We Don't Tell the People We Love is my short story collection. It's about our most intimate secrets in our closest relationships and what is withheld and what is unsaid.
Yeah, we absolutely loved it. But today we are here to talk about Huma's brand new novel, which is out now, and it's called Playing Games. And we were so fortunate to launch this book and host the celebration of playing games with the fortunate few who came to the event. So Huma, can you
Very exclusive.
I know, it was very exclusive. So Huma, can you tell us a little bit about Playing Games?
Absolutely. Playing Games, I love Playing Games. Playing Games is about two sisters who are similar but very different, and perhaps more similar than they care to admit or that they will let themselves admit. It's kind of a race on the idea of what you borrow from your sisters. So sisters borrowing without asking. It asks that question of what can we borrow without asking when it comes to our lives and their lives. It's a novel about art and creativity. It's a novel about love and motherhood, sisterhood, longing and betrayal. But above all, for me, it's a novel about love. So yeah, I love this book, and I hope readers do as well.
We love it. Like unequivocally one of our top reads of the year.
I think it's not often we all agree so wholeheartedly on a book. Like sometimes some of us will love it more than others, but I think this was like the general consensus was we all loved it. It was so good. You just got through it so quickly. You were so engaged in it. Yeah, we can't give it enough praise.
And I'm really sorry to make the similarity, but I mean, it's not that it's similar at all. But when we read it, we were like, this is like better than Sally Rooney.
Oh yeah.
And we just want to make sure that the world knows that, right? Because Sally Rooney already has like that name. So if she published a book tomorrow saying cleaning the toilet, it will be a bestseller. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Playing Games, we just love the premise of that book. The fact that you're reading it and like it's just like habitual at the same time. Do you know what I mean? It's like everyday life.
Yeah.
It's not like some
Big dramatic.
Yes, it doesn't have to be dramatic. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the sisterhood element.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a sister. For those of you who don't know, Omar and Tanya are sisters. And I love the Lee. They have 3 other sisters.
5 in total.
Huma, you don't have sisters.
I don't have
2 brothers. And you both
We both have brothers.
Younger
brothers.
So obviously when we read it, all having siblings, we had like different perspectives and different takes. But yeah, we just wanted to speak about the sister element. So there are 2 sisters, Hannah and Mira, who, as you say, are similar, but not.
Mm-hmm.
So who's on Team Hannah and who's on Team Mira?
I'm Team Mira, and I think I might be alone in this group.
So Mira's the younger.
Mira's the younger sister. She's a lot more creative, a lot more in with her emotions than Hannah is, and I think that's probably why I'm a little bit more Team Mira, despite the fact that I'm an older sister. I came to it thinking I would definitely have more of a perspective of the older sister, but I didn't. I found myself getting frustrated with Hannah and how she blocks herself because she can't unlock any of her true feelings and she can't say the things she wants to. And I found myself getting so frustrated with that I was very much like, Mira's where it's at.
Also, don't be alarmed, Huma.
Team Mira and Team Hannah doesn't mean we don't like them. It's just a bit of an opinion as to who we have more affinity to.
I counted as one.
An opinion. And also just a bit of like, whose perspective did you feel more for?
Yeah.
And I think the reason, Jess has kind of alluded to it, but the reason I felt such an affinity to Hannah is because I'm the eldest and she's the eldest, and she's kept everything together for her family. And you know, not comparing myself to her in that dramatic a fashion, but I get it. I get the expectation of being the eldest and having to kind of lead the way and carve the path and be the one that kind of holds everything together. So that's why I loved Hannah.
You also liked Hannah.
I did. So I think initially reading it, like, you do feel frustrated with Hannah, but I think as the story goes on, you understand her more and more, and you see all of the pressures that she's sort of dealing with, both in like work, her own family life, with Mira. You know, they've lost a parent. Their father is not mentioned at all, so we don't really know what happened, but they lost their mum when they were sort of quite young. And I think Hannah felt like the responsibility for Mira, and even though there's only a 2-year age gap between them, I really felt for Hannah. I feel like she had a lot of pressure on her, and because she is quite regimented and strict at work because she's a lawyer, that naturally comes into her sort of personal life as well. So I think the more I read, the more I felt for Hannah, and I think some of the things that she was struggling with as well. So I think some of the themes in there are like infertility, sort of issues with her marriage as well, and and just caring for Mira and seeing how, like, I think Mira's just so different from her in terms of her work life, you know, her romantic life. Everything is, it's quite different from Hannah. So I can understand why she felt frustrated with Mira a lot of the time.
Linda, can you do a spoiler warning?
Yeah, do you know what? There will be spoilers in the chat. Sorry that I didn't mention it earlier, but you should know by now on this channel.
That's true.
Me and Tanya were actually on the fence.
I think I like both. I like both of them. I understood why Hannah was the way she was, and I also understand why Mira was the way she was as well. And being the youngest, I felt like Mira was really confused, and having like 4 older sisters, like they kind of knew what they wanted. As I was growing up, I was kind of given the freedom to do whatever, so I was confused as well. And I kind of saw that in Mira, even though she wanted to be a playwright, like she wasn't as confident in her abilities, even though obviously she had this really successful play afterwards. Spoiler.
Tell them.
But yeah, I got both of them. And I remember seeing some video about, I think it's like a psychologist who said, or like a child psychologist, and he said every child has a different version of their parents.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like Hannah felt like, obviously when their mum passed away at a young age, she felt like she had to be responsible for Mira, even though she didn't have to, but she took that role. But I felt for both of them. I love both of them, to be honest.
Can I ask you a question, actually? Now that we can spoil it a little bit.
Yeah.
What was your opinion of Mira taking the argument Hannah and her husband had and turning that into a play? What was your personal opinion of Mira in that point?
You know what? I don't think she necessarily did anything so bad.
Okay, I agree.
And I think there's no clear-cut answer either. I don't think it is as easy as saying, oh God, no, you should never write from real life, or, oh, of course you do, like everyone does. And I think it's just a really fascinating subject to consider when you're both a reader, but also when you're a writer, because as a reader, I think often there is a tendency to read into a novel, even though it's a work of fiction, and think that some elements of it must be biographical, even if they're not. And I think there's a natural inclination to do that. And on the other hand, as a writer, why do we have to justify where it comes from? And isn't the most kind of creative and playful and fun part of writing completely imagining something that is so far removed from your life? It is, but it has to start from somewhere. And isn't it okay to take an idea from anywhere? You know, we take ideas from everywhere. Writers are greedy like that. So I don't think there is a clear-cut answer.
I absolutely agree. And make sure that you are subscribed to our channel and that you like this video and all the others, and comment, and make sure that you tell us what you think of playing games, or if you've just come across Huma Qureshi's work, then we want to hear from you as well.
I wanted to ask Huma, Obviously, at the end, Hannah goes to see Mira's play and she figures out what it's all about. And she's really upset, validly, even though she doesn't watch the whole thing. What do you think Mira should have done or could have done better to avoid that situation?
Well, Mira, and I love both sisters equally, and I care about them both, and I love hearing you talk about them like they're real. They are real. They are so real to me still, even now. She had a chance before the play came out. She goes to dinner with her sister. It was so easy to have had that conversation, and it was at the tip of her tongue, but the easiest thing to do in that moment was to avoid it, because I think she already knew what Hannah's reaction was going to be. Yeah. And Mira is the kind of person who doesn't necessarily want to confront reality. So she let it pass, and she willfully convinced herself that it wasn't a big deal the longer that time went on.
It's also the pressure of that moment as well when they're at dinner, because Hannah's giving her a gift at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's that being given something so meaningful to you to help your own work progress. How do you then tell somebody?
Jess, I think someone's trying to get your attention.
But yeah, essentially, at that point when, Hannah is gifting Mira something that is so valuable to her work and how she can progress in her career, how does she then turn around and say, actually, the way I'm starting my career is based on something that happened to you in real life? It's so difficult.
Absolutely. And also that's the first moment that Hannah has kind of shown an indication that she is actually really supportive of what Mira is doing, and it's a really big step for Hannah. And you can see their relationship kind of getting closer. So yeah, it would have been a huge bombshell to drop. That's not to say she didn't have ample opportunity throughout the novel as well, but I also don't blame her for it. I think when we find ourselves in moments, it is, like you said, it's like a moment. You have to make this decision when you're in that conversation. You can't plan for all these things. It's not how real life happens.
Yeah. And I think at the end when they sort of like rekindle after some time has passed, and Hannah was like, well, what would you have done if I had said no? And I suppose that's the question. That is the question. It's like, she was afraid that her sister would say no.
Yeah.
Because that's the natural response, right?
What do you think Mira would have done if she said no?
I think she tries to explain herself in that conversation that they have at the end, which is that I would have made you understand, I think is what she said to Hannah. And I think she probably would have. She would have got there somehow in a kind of clumsy Mira way.
Yeah.
Maybe not being as clear as she could be. She would have muddled her way through it, I think.
I agree with you though. I don't think it was as big a deal as it was for Hannah. I get it. I get why someone would be annoyed that their sister used an argument between husband and wife, behind closed doors, literally, as the premise for a play that they were writing. But obviously it was anonymized. Okay, she knows that was her conversation with her husband.
Yeah.
And it was a pretty bloody loud conversation.
Yeah. She was staying in her house. And the door was open.
Do you know what I mean? It wasn't like she took her phone, read some private convos and was like, aha, eureka, let me put this in my thread.
The fallout between Hannah and Mira about that play, it's almost not even about the play. It's about everything they have gone through as sisters. And I think that's the other thing that I really wanted to capture, was how that is so normal. Like, I could really feel that happening in the moment whilst I was writing it. I could imagine this, just everything tumbles out in a fight, like things that have got nothing to do with what they're talking about. When they're standing outside the theatre, they have this massive argument. And at one point, Mira says, what are you even talking about? That's got nothing to do with this. Yeah. That is the point. It is everything.
I think that's why we love your stories and your books so much, because it all just feels so real. Relatable. See it happening. You feel yourself in that moment, and you just know that this is how that story is meant to go.
Can I ask what you think has happened to their relationship since the end of the book? Do you think they're now getting on really well? Where do you think they are?
I think they're going to be okay. That's the feeling that I always have, is that they're not going to suddenly be best friends. Yeah. That's not going to happen overnight. But I think they realise now how much they need each other in their lives and how hard it is. Yeah.
I think it's a real shame, because I feel like they both need to just have this really big heart-to-heart, because you know, throughout the, like in the beginning of the book anyway, I wouldn't say Hannah comes across as like the baddie, but like you're supposed to almost feel a bit more for Mira in terms of the miscommunication and the way that Hannah is very rigid and very like cutthroat and almost emotionless at a lot of times when they're like conversing and stuff. And you just really want them to have this big conversation where it's just like, I do love you, I do care about you, this is just how I show it. And Mira also kind of needs to say to her that I love you too, and I appreciate everything that you've gone through and what you've done for me. And I feel like I feel like that would have really just opened up a lot of, like, released a lot of emotions for both of them and really been healthy for their relationship. But I think what I hope is that obviously Hannah has a child, and I feel like once you have a baby, naturally you just become so much closer to your siblings. Like we're lucky, we've got 3 nephews and then now a new niece who's like 2 years old now. And me and my sister, we were 2 years apart, and we were sort of like best friends and then enemies and best friends and enemies, like growing up, just because we were so close in age. But I've noticed that since she's had her daughter, even if me and her are in an argument, I'll still call her because I want to speak to my niece. So you're just so much more forgiving for the sake of like your niece or nephew or whatever. So I hope that is another avenue to just bring them closer together, because they may not be able to say or show their love to each other, but they'll be able to show it to the child.
So can we just talk about Samir?
Wait.
Right, okay.
Did you guys like him?
No, absolutely not. Did you like him, Huma?
I don't like him. I mean, I felt for him at moments with Hannah, for sure. I really felt for him. I don't think
I felt he was mean to Hannah a lot. Like it was like a joke that has truth behind it, and I feel like she was, but like you don't gang up on your wife sort of with her sister when you know that they have a difficult relationship.
Okay, so before the ganging up.
But he did that a lot because Mira notices it.
I know
We care about our brother that we love, but Hannah pushes her husband away, just obviously like knowingly, unknowingly. Like I just feel like it happens because of like her personality and how she is. We don't want to dwell on that too much. Like, you know, when you read the book, you let us know what you think. But
and also there is a reason for why she is the way that she is as well, and she does have a
clearly valid. Yeah, clearly valid. What Samir does after that, absolute joke.
I think up until that point, I was like, he's not bad.
Yeah, I want to know the birthday cake.
Wait. There were certain things before all of that happened. I was like, he's not bad.
The beige flag.
Yeah, and like the way she was, like he was still. I thought like he was very mellow. Like he used to hype up Mira, blah blah blah, all of that stuff. And then as it went on, I was like, there's something not right about this guy. But then I also feel like with Hannah, if you're not close with your sister, you should still at least be honest with like your husband, with everything that you're feeling. She wasn't open with him either. So it's like, I think they were both at fault, but yeah, he was a waste man. I didn't like it.
I just think he was really selfish in the way that he had envisioned how his life was going to go
without factoring his wife in.
Exactly. And he just kind of thought that everything would be okay if he just kept putting off this big decision to have a child. When deep down he didn't want one.
Yeah. Tell us. Well, what I like to do when I create a character is to have them be complicated and contradictory within that. So yeah, there are times when Samir is really getting on with his sister-in-law, and I thought at the beginning at least, I mean obviously there's something that happens later in the book to change all that, but in the beginning they have a kind of friendship, and I thought that was quite special, and I wanted to show him being that person, like he is close to his wife's sister.
Yeah. And it just seems genuine.
And that's,
yeah, older brother.
Yeah, and there's the jostling and the kind of teasing that goes on. But at the same time, he's deeply, even though none of the story is from his perspective, he's very lost and quite troubled and overwhelmed. I think he just doesn't know what he wants from life, and that is I found that quite an irritating quality. This as a grown man, still being so indecisive, especially when his wife is so decisive, and And yeah, so what I wanted to create for Samir was not really whether he's likable or dislikable, but was just that he's this really complicated character, as they all are.
Yeah,
and he fits into that.
I think like what is great that you do is that you don't physically describe your characters and how they look. In a way, I wish you had physically described Samir, because I imagined him to be like balding, bit of a punch, not very good looking. And I think maybe if you described him as being good looking, I would have been a bit nicer or been a bit more positive about him. But yeah, like how comes
with those things, Omar? What's wrong with balding? And
is someone balding
having a
he's watching this video?
Gosh. Sorry. Sorry. Let's not dwell on that bit. So hang on, what are the 3 things that you want our viewers to like take away about playing games?
Above all, I want people to remember or to read this book and really feel that even though bad things happen, ultimately it's a story about hope. It really mattered to me to write a story that was tender, so I wanted that love to come across, because even though, yes, big things happen in the book and people get hurt, there's a lot of love as well, and that really mattered to me, especially after writing the short stories, which mostly ended quite darkly and quite tragically. I wanted to give something with hope, and so Playing Games is a book about hope. I want people to not think that they know what the story is before they read it, because it's about sisters. And I think there's a lot of stories with the trope of 2 sisters, very different. I deliberately wanted to make it more complicated than that, which is why they're not just these cookie cutter characters of good sister, bad sister, organized sister, crazy sister. Like it's got more depth.
Did anyone see what was going to happen between the 2 sisters? No, neither. Okay, so
amazing.
That's 5 there.
And the last thing, I guess, is that I want you to feel, I want it to feel real. Like I said, hearing you all talk about it like they're real people, I want the reader to experience the reality of it and to hopefully sit in that language and all the kind of the craft of it, and to feel like they're transported somewhere else into this like house in North London where a lot of stuff is happening behind their front door.
Amazing. I feel like you succeeded. Yeah, you succeeded.
Thank you.
3 of those points and some. So what are you working on next, Huma, if you can share?
Well, I am in the early stages of what might be the next book, hopefully. I want to write something. I mean, all my stories, as you know, my focus is always on families and relationships, real lives and moments in those real lives and the fallout from things that happen. I kind of feel like I'm ready to take that to a bigger cast almost. So I want to write something of a kind of messy, complicated family, even more.
Can I also suggest that you write a romance book, please? I'd love that. I would love it.
Cheesy romance.
Yes. So cheesy. I think your style of romance would be so good to read.
I like playing games, but
Where?
I love happy
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be happy, but just like, I feel like your take on romance would be so good. I would love that.
The Candid book club. So I hope that we've excited you all about Playing Games, which, just let me reiterate, we absolutely love this novel unanimously. And thank you so much, Huma, for joining us. And if you guys haven't read any of Huma's work, I'm so jealous of you. You're in for a treat. So you can get Playing Games and all of Huma's other work at all your major bookshops and independent bookstores, and online, and in our bookshop.org link in our bio. And join us soon. So make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you later.